Greetings. This is San Francisco 1999, and I'm Neil Cavan. I'm an artist and a performer, and I was there on the San Francisco Bay Area scene during the last days before smartphones and social media. And I host conversations here with guests who recollect what life was like back in the before times. The folks who are sharing their stories each week in conversation were then, and still are, vibrant contributors and participants in the co-creation of San Francisco Bay Area arts and culture. The majority of the esteemed guests are folks that I know from that time and or had the pleasure of working with back then, perhaps are still my colleagues now, many of whom I have the honor of considering my good friends to this very day. You can join the conversation by leaving a question or a comment at sanfran99.com. All right, welcome back. This is episode 2, and dovetailing off of last week's episode about the history and origins of cell space, part 1, we are joined today in conversation with John Schroeder. John Schroeder is a very talented multi-instrumentalist, and you can catch him in bands like Dr. Abacus or House of Hamsa. John Schroeder is also a filmmaker, documentarian, screenwriter, and an international educator of music. And in relation to this particular podcast, he is one of the founders of Jingletown Gallery and Warehouse Space, which was around during the years between 1996 and 2000 in Oakland. So John is sharing what it was like to be part of the warehouse movement of the late 90s. John Schroeder, conversation already in progress.
We're kind of living in the underground of the Bay Area anyway. After this house where we did this whole album, like we're playing shows, but since Sankita was coming home, we all had to move out. So there was this moment of disarray. So the band was in good shape, but we had nowhere to practice and nowhere to even sleep. I've ingratiated myself with Justin and Patrick, who lived in a little house with a bunch of people.
Were they in the East Bay?
Yeah, this is Berkeley, and I'm sleeping on their couch. I mean, I was barely getting by. I was setting tile, doing whatever I could to make a buck. The other part is, like, housing's tough in the Bay Area now. It was tough then too.
Yes.
During the first internet bubble, there were these things where people were coming in to do internet stuff and tech stuff, were coming in with very impressive digitally produced applications to get into the houses and stuff, and ready to pay 3 months up in advance.
Right.
So it was really competitive. Like, a place would come up for rent, 20 people would show up, and a couple of them would be really savvy and well paid and ready to do it. So, of course, the ragamuffins ended up in the warehouses.
Yeah, right.
There was nowhere else for us to live. This is coinciding with doing the very first opening party shows at Cell Space.
Interesting.
Which, of course, was an important seminal thing. We did these first shows at Cell Space and found out how that Jonathan, Ute, and others were making this thing happen. They made a lot of great things possible for people, and they inspired us. There was a movement there that was not only like in the Mission, it was certainly a lot of it happening in the Mission.
How did you find that place?
Our drummer, Patrick Kaliski, his dad he was a realtor and a developer, and he had a whole thing like live works loft spaces. And and this one, they found this one. It was a time when America and certainly California stopped making anything except software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's still a couple of like hunting packs of musicians and artists and freaks like us that were like hovering around on the in the catacombs and stuff. There are lots of people. In fact, like next door to our warehouse, which was a really cool warehouse. I mean, it was a 7,000-foot warehouse that was a triangle that it was kind of meant to be like an office space at the pointy tip of the one side of the triangle, and then a big open warehouse space at the whole other end. You could actually, if you had all the doors open, you could see a straight line all the way across from the top point of the isosceles triangle
Amazing.
all the way to the roll top garage door at the other end.
Phenomenal. This is in Oakland?
Yeah, Jingletown. Well, we called it Jingletown Gallery
Yeah.
because we knew the historic name was Jingletown for that neighborhood. It was called Jingletown because I guess long ago the zoot suit dudes with their chains on their wallet were jingling around, and that was like a zoot suit Latino zone of Oakland.
Did you start throwing parties like immediately?
Yeah, we had to figure out how to pay the rent, and we we had to figure out how to pay the rent, so we had started having these parties. There was this upstairs hallway space that had a little nook above the kitchen, no doors. That's where Veer and his girlfriend lived. Every time we had a party, Veer and his girlfriend had to move all their stuff into my room or some other and stash it away so we could turn it into like hang the art paintings. And like we hosted like a lot of,
Yeah.
pretty amazing people like Boots from the Coup played there and displayed art there.
Wow.
Mystic Journeyman, and we had Shepherd Ferry art opening there.
So did you build out a gallery there in the front?
Yeah, we actually had a couple of curators, people that were working at other galleries, and they were looking for alternative spaces that weren't the downtown San Francisco gallery scene, and for young upcoming artists and such to be seen. And so we had these parties that were also art openings and happenings. Like we had like a kiddie pool full of chocolate pudding in the room.
What?
So you come in, when you walk in the place, there'd be like a big tub of pudding, and then I think it was a bit ill conceived because there was also like original artwork on the wall, so no one's going to get freaky with the pudding with people's artwork in there. And then also like I had like an old analog synth and a tape echo going, and just like making ambient freak music the whole time too.
John, I didn't know you then, but of everything, that's what I remember was you with the Echoplex, or the Roland Space Echo or whatever it was.
Nice. But we could see, like, we figured it was 18 lanes of traffic, including Interstate 880, the roads, and the train tracks that were on the other side of us, because we're right between 880 and the train. So
is that the Fruitvale area? Where is that? That's
yeah, that's Fruitvale. It's a little north of the Fruitvale BART station.
Yeah.
And so 18 lanes of locomotion, and it was pretty industrial. So we would do this thing like we're like, I just got to get out in the woods, because we all were like, Vera's like a naturalist and
That's
a
right.
nature biologist, and I'm a climber and a surfer, and like we wanted to be out in the woods. So, but we found ourselves in the one place we could be noisy and throw big ass parties and stuff,
Yeah.
and that was in the industrial Oakland, in what used to be manufacturers land. We'd also just get out of there. We'd go up into Joaquin Miller and Redwood Park,
Nice.
up the hill there in Oakland, and we'd just go at night and just go like camp out under the trees, like just go like sleep in the trees at night. It was pretty great.
Yeah.
And then the thing with the parties is the whole scene blew up really fast. Like the parties just got bigger and bigger until you remember what's the dude call himself? DJ Lauren became known as Bass Nectar.
Of course.
We had this big party with them. They brought in the biggest speakers I've ever seen. It was unsafe. It was not a safe place.
Yeah.
There were unfinished areas, so we had someone fall through the rafters and land on a whole story down and to land on bunch of pot plants to break their
Oh.
fall at one time. The parties got bigger and bigger until the cops started coming. At the end, the cops came over before the party, and they're like, you can't, no parties, or, we're shutting you down in advance. The cops came every time, but usually they didn't come until late. And then as soon as we moved out, some other guys that had kind of trickled in were going to take it over. Really cool guys. But then there was like an oil spill, because it turned out like the back room on this place had like an oil tank buried under the concrete to fill up machinery. So that bubbled up into the place. And so they're like,
God.
Thanks, guy. So it's like we're like a bunch of, we're like living in an industrial wasteland of sorts, Not great.
Toxic waste dump. Yeah, that's wild. You've been listening to John Schroeder in conversation, talking about the warehouse days of the late 1990s in the San Francisco Bay Area. Thank you, John Schroeder, for your time and your entertaining stories. Thanks to Jonathan Ute for last week's episode and his stories and time. And thank you for listening to San Francisco 1999. We'll be back next Friday with another episode for you. Subscribe to this podcast so that you get notified. And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can go to sanfran99.com, leave a question, comment, sign up for the newsletter. And hey, before you go, remember this: you are making history. You are part of history. You are part of culture. And so my hopes and my wishes for you are that you find ways to express yourself creatively and engage in the communities and the cultures that you are passionate about, and be a part of making something happen. Until next time, take care and much love.